Hello, world, and welcome. We are thrilled to have you tuning in with us live or catching the replay. This is a pre-publication proof reveal that I couldn't be more excited and thrilled about for the memoir, Though I Walk. This is a super inspiring story, one that the world needs to hear. I just can't even tell you. My whole body is covered in goosebumps. Elated to be here with the author, Sam Heinrichs, and his literary manager, Kiki Ringer. So we're going to give you a behind the scenes look of the journey that Sam has been on to bring his book to publication. It is due out next month. We'll be talking more about that today. We're also going to be reading some excerpts from the book. We're going to reveal it shortly, and also giving you a peek at Sam's webpage and telling you all the things. And this has been a very long time coming. Sam and I were trying to remember when he reached out and we started this journey, and we are pretty sure that it was January of 2022. That's what we think, which means it's been a hot second. Okay, this is a thing of love. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to the other people who are here joining me today. And if you're not familiar with who I am, I'm Allie with The Right Place, Right Time. I'm an international ghostwriter and book coach, developmental editor, and an award-winning author. And I have the absolute honor and privilege of having worked with Sam on developing the manuscript, and he's given me the greatest honor of having my name appear alongside his on the cover. So let me introduce the man of the hour, Sam Heinrichs. And I'm going to read Sam's bio right from the back cover of the book. Sam is a licensed marriage and family therapist, shares his survivor story to spark conversations on child abuse and its lasting impact. As a gay survivor of clergy abuse, he brings deep personal insight into trauma and recovery. Based in Las Vegas, where he offers therapeutic services, Sam lives with his beloved husband and dog, still loves to walk, enjoys the ocean, and continues to search for peace. Sam, hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting. Oh, I almost revealed the whole thing. We're not ready for that yet. And then also with us is Kiki with KLR Literary Management. Kiki is Sam's literary manager, and we're going to learn more about Kiki and her services and what she does for authors and how she's helped Sam with the publication of his book in a few moments. But Kiki, hey.
Hey. Thanks for doing Thanks for doing this, Allie. This is, like you were saying, it's a really important book and a really important message to get out that people can talk about. And so I'm really excited that we're doing this.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I know. It's it feels a little weird to be this excited about a story that is so devastating. So we should acknowledge that. And we also want to acknowledge that for those who are catching live or catching the replay, we are going to be very intentional about what we share today, as the point is not to trigger anyone. Today's point is actually to celebrate the courage of this man and author in sharing this story and in sharing it in a way that will hopefully serve other survivors, but also the advocates and the allies and the loved ones and support people of those who have experienced the same type of abuse that Sam has. So I feel like, that being said, what we ought to do first is actually read the description of the book. And then, Sam, I'll give us a little 3, 2, 1, and we'll flash this bad boy up into the camera to show people how it's looking so far. So, in my best TV personality voice, in the shadows of childhood memories lies a haunting truth. Though I Walk is a harrowing memoir that delves into the life of Sam Heinrichs, a man who must confront the traumatic secrets of his past. As a young boy, Sam was ensnared in the dark corridors of abuse within his religious community. Now, as an adult, he revisits these painful memories, uncovering repressed trauma and battling the devastating impact of his abuse. Along the way, unable to confront his abuser, he challenges the institution that failed him and finds solace in sharing his story with the world. I would read the next paragraph, but on these copies of the not for resale proofs, There's a banner right through the second paragraph, and I can't really tell what those first two sentences say. But you get a sense of what this book is about and the depths and amazingness that this story holds. Now, I'm gonna do it because I feel like doing it. We've had a few different really wonderful endorsements come through, but one of the finest that we've received so far has been this. Though I Walk is a deeply moving account of Sam's journey to discover the root cause of his emotional scars by uncovering repressed memories through rigorous psychedelic-assisted therapy sessions, where his experiences with clergy abuse are unearthed. Sam's decision to courageously face these repulsive memories and to hold the church accountable through legal channels helps him regain his power and authentic self. This story is important and provides a deeper understanding of how clergy abuse survivors carry not only the trauma of childhood sexual abuse and its aftermath, but also the enormous weight of the Catholic Church's historical patterns of silence and cover-ups. It's a beautiful and gorgeous endorsement and really sums up the book in such a glorious way that the three of us, after months of working on it, could never have done on our own. So Sam, 3, 2, 1, here we go. 3, 2, 1, ta-da! And of course, here we are, and it's beautiful. Now, folks, this little middle banner here, will be there by the time it publishes. That just says not for resale. So this is the author's proof copy. This is the one that we get to review and look for any of those remaining pesky typos and things that no longer make sense, or that shouldn't be there, or the errors, if you will. So we're really excited about this. Now, my personal favorite interior feature here is that the section breaks in between individual parts of the book repeat the front cover image. Oops, wrong side. Repeat the front cover image and then have the title of the part here in the center. It's beautifully done. So we do want to give a huge shout out to the cover and interior designer, Victoria Wolf, with Wolf Design and Marketing. And we'll give a little more info on Victoria in a little bit. So what we want to do with all of you tuning in first is give you kind of the short Cliff Notes version of the journey that Sam has been on to bring his story to the world. So Sam, when did you, and I know the answers to this, but this is for everybody else. When did you realize that you wanted to write a book about this experience, and what were some of the first steps that you took at the very beginning to get started?
Sure. I think it was when I went to sue the institution, and through the process of, it was COVID during the time, and the delay in the court appearances, the perpetrator had passed away. And so there was, in the diocese that I grew up in, there was the ability to them, the Catholic Church, to list his name, and they decided not to list his name. So I thought at that point, the only voice that I had was to be able to write a book, to be able to get his name out there. And so in doing that, I'm trying to think where I first reached out to. Oh, I was given the name of a publisher. I'm not sure if they were a publisher, who then connected me with Allie, and we started the process of me sending a box, literally a box of legal paperwork, my journals that I had created, anything that had to do with this case, send it to her and said, create a book out of it.
Here you go.
Here you go. Oh my gosh, I've never seen so much
And
paper.
then Allie just went poof, and it became a book.
Right. I was like, and ta-da, all done. I so wish it was that easy. Oh my goodness. Like, yeah, I think what I remember, Sam, is you reached out through a contact form. And what struck me was just how open and honest you were about the experience in the contact form. Most people like keep that to themselves, and then they get on the phone with me and then they decide like if they're gonna give me all of it, or they're just gonna give me like a little taste because they're like feeling me out. But you were clearly in a very different place in the journey where you were ready, like, no, this is my truth and this is what happened. And I'm like done like shying away from it, and I'm going to do this. And I think one of the things that has remained true from the very beginning in working with you was that part of the motivation and impetus for this book was that you wanted this guy to be named.
Right.
And you wanted to take your voice back, because part of the legal process was really just reliving trauma and feeling shame all over again. And then, you know, you didn't really get what you wanted. You didn't get an apology. You didn't get an acknowledgement. You didn't get a validation. And we won't give away the whole ending, you know, because there were other people that you didn't hear back from. Right. So this is like, that's been the thing right from the very beginning,
Right.
has been getting to be heard.
Right.
So I'm a ghostwriter, and here's what's unusual, folks, is that ghostwriters are not often visible. The whole point of the word ghost in ghostwriter is that they often are behind the scenes and they're not acknowledged, they're invisible. But it's always up to the author to decide if that's their preference. Sam has given me the honor, as I already mentioned, has given me the honor of having my name appear with his on the front cover. And this is not something that happens with all ghostwriters. So I hold this very, very dear and very sacred, the fact that he's sharing this cover space with me. Ultimately, this is Sam's story. He is the author. It's his experience that we have written about. I was the hired pen who put the words together on the page to help tell it in the best way that we could tell it. But it's really Sam's truth, and it's Sam's experience. And anything that's been written into the manuscript has been read 1,000 times by Sam, and approved or improved, you know, and fixed and adjusted to make sure that it's the most accurate account of his experience and his story that we could get. And the reason it took us however many months, right, just to draft and develop this thing is because of that overwhelming box of information that there was to go through. Not only was Sam's experience multiple years to try to understand on the page in a chronology that the reader could understand, but we had to dip into Sam's past to explain how things that he went through as a child connect to the abuse he discovered as an adult, and then to make things more complicated, but also, you know, not complicated in a bad way, but complicated in a way when you're trying to structure a story. We had all of the legal proceedings that we then had to try to figure out, how do we explain those to a reader in a way that's not confusing, that only offers the pieces that they really need to understand the story. Because let me tell you, reading those documents make your eyes bleed. They're very hard to understand. They're very, very dry. And a lot of that legal documentation was just like motions for things to like extend deadlines, or to hear from somebody else, or to get more permissions, or to object against somebody else's like wants for a disclosure. So there was a lot of pieces to this particular story to kind of handle. So we were in manuscript development for months. I mean, I think from the moment, Sam, that you and I started to the moment that we were ready to hand it over for line editing, I think it was 18 months, if not a little bit longer. So we did a really great job, but it took time. So I think, you know, we want people to understand that it doesn't always take people 18 months. But when you have a nuanced story that takes over years, you know, and also is parts of legal proceedings and things like that, there are some other intricacies that you have to kind of plan for. So ghostwriting is one thing, right? The ghostwriter does not have to be visible. That's one piece. But the second piece I really want people to understand is that we had legal considerations for this manuscript. We had to consider what was public record and therefore fine to go in. We had to make sure that Sam wasn't bound by any NDAs or confidentiality agreements where he couldn't speak about certain things, right? We even consulted with an attorney around issues of defamation, slander, and libel, because we named Sam's perpetrator. So, there has been a lot of T's being crossed and I's being dotted, behind the scenes to bring this book to life. A lot of hard work and care and diligence. Now, towards the end of manuscript development is when we started to think about publishing avenues and who Sam was going to work with. And we vetted a whole bunch of people. And Kiki, winner, winner, chicken dinner, my friend. So, Sam, do you want to talk about, before we bring Kiki onto the stage for her moment in the spotlight, do you want to talk about what you were kind of looking for when you were deciding to publish? Like, what were things that really meant something to you as an author with such a story, to share with the world?
I think I was looking for somebody that kind of had the same personality that I had. So they would be able to work kind of in the same vein that I would be working. And I think that it was really important for somebody to understand that the sensitivity of the material of the book, and totally understand that and have a feel for that along with it. I also wanted somebody that had a sense of humor, that we could laugh at times, because if we didn't laugh, we'd cry. So I think that was important. Those were the main things I was looking for.
Yeah, I think levity is such a huge thing. I think, writing about trauma and being in a trauma space, right, is a heavy, heavy load. And if we just stay there, like, it's hard, right? So I think humor is such an important thing.
Well, I think the whole publishing process is
Yeah.
an emotional process, right? So not only just the writing of the manuscript, telling of the story, but then there's the whole emotional roller coaster of going through line and copy editing, proofreading, cover design, like all of it. It's this ebb and flow. And and Sam and I were just talking this morning about, at one point I said, it sometimes feels odd to talk about how we're going to market this book, because it is such a sensitive issue, and it is such an important topic.
Yeah.
Right. And then, and right along with it, you have to have some giggles, because if you can't laugh, then you're going to crumble. So I think that part of it's important. And Allie, I love that you made a big deal about the time that goes into telling the story and getting out all the good details. And Sam, down to, some of these marketing things that we've been doing, you are on every detail and making sure that it is authentic to your story and that we're not missing or mixing up any of those facts. And I think it's really important to know that it takes a while. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to get that story told and but it is also with that courage and the resilience that Sam has that it got done.
Yeah. And that is definitely what it takes. No matter what book you're writing, it's going to take courage and resilience. But especially for those who are bringing, such important memoirs to the forefront. And Kiki, I think that we ought to really give you an incredible nod. Sam talked to multiple people, and you were by far the one who had the most heartfelt reaction on the call to Sam talking about his story. You didn't just jump to, what do you want to do with the book, or what's your platform, or what's your budget? And I think that went a long way. Sam wants to be seen, like, not just as like a transaction. So with that being said, Kiki, literary manager of KLR Literary Management, why don't you talk to us about some of the things, like, I kind of gave you the baton, right? Here's
the baby.
Please hold it gently. Tell us a little bit about your part in this process, and some of the roles that you take on for authors, right? Your tagline is, where all you do is write. So let's start there. What does that even mean?
So that means that I really don't want the authors to be bothered with a lot of these, what I call back office details. yes, you need to know you have an ISBN. You need to own your own ISBN, but do you really need to know what ISBN stands for? Do you really need to know how to, optimize the metadata of the ISBN? No. And it, yes, could Sam have gone and done all of this on his own? Of course. There's a lot, all this information is out there. You can find it all, but it's a matter of knowing who to trust and making sure Sam is seen in the way that he needs to be seen, and not just following one path and saying, okay, this is the way I do it, but making sure that we're getting the message out there for Sam. So it's going through and finding that perfect line and copy editor, finding the proofreader, that, like you mentioned, Victoria, and the interior design and the cover design. And then it's getting distribution in the right channels. Do we want to be in bookstores? Do we want to be, where are we getting the message out? And so I think it's really important to me that the authors get to stay focused on their zone of genius, and which is telling their story and not being bothered with all of the other rigmarole of, distribution, metadata. And for some reason, I don't know why, authors never seem to like to do their own marketing. So I love that part. I think, to me, that's where the fun begins, and it never ends, because you should never stop marketing your book. Right? There's always new readers out there, and always a new audience to pitch to. Yeah. So, but again, why would Sam, is that his zone of genius? Probably not. His zone of genius is being a therapist. So let's keep him serving in the right place, rather than having him like drudging through keywords and categories. So it's what I love to do, is just really help get that story out there, just be kind of that person behind the scenes. I always joked when I worked at the literary agency that, when you go and win awards, please don't invite me to the award ceremony, because I'll be at home watching it on TV, eating chocolate in my sweatpants. So
I like that. But I
think that's where I'll be when you win awards.
This brings up a good point, though, is that, we don't have Victoria and we don't have Sam's editor, Nay, with us today, unfortunately. Neither could make it at the last minute. But if we had them also on, you would have all seen, right, the number of people that it takes to bring a book to the world, right? So it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a book. And it won't be more true, really. And, I'm trying to think if there were anybody else involved beyond.
I just remember, Jenny Jolly was a proofreader.
Yeah. Okay. So.
And one more person.
Let me add. Actually, Kiki, send me proofreader information in the private chat. Let me add into the comments for folks. Cover design, interior design. So you can check out Victoria Wolf of Wolf Design and Marketing. If you're here live with us, we would love to know. And if there's anything that's coming up for you or any questions that you'd like to ask, please pop them into the comments so that we can address those. But we want to share who has had a hand in Sam's book, because everybody has done such a really phenomenal job. Okay, Jenny John.
And like you said, it takes a village, right? It's not. I think when I started my business 15 years ago, I personally was going to be the one person who did everything. And I very quickly learned that, one, I hate doing interior design and interior layout.
Yeah.
But I don't have those skills, right? And that's a complete disservice to the author, saying, hey, I'm going to create your cover, when it would have looked nothing like the one Victoria did, right?
Yeah.
It would have been chicken scratches.
Yep. And you want your cover to stand out. Like, you don't want to skip there, people.
Right.
So Nadera Merrill, or Nay for short, was Sam's line editor. And Nay is an experienced editor who specializes in both fiction and nonfiction, offers a range of editing and proofreading services, and loves to work on books in romance, thriller, dystopian, post-apocalyptic, memoir, self-help, and spirituality genres. So Nay is multifaceted in terms of the work that she does. Hey, Laura, thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Laura says, congrats on your upcoming book, Sam. I'm looking forward to reading it. So, you know, I think one of the misconceptions that authors have, maybe not even a misconception, maybe misinformation or lack of information, is just how many people they're going to need from cover to cover, right? I know, Sam, you didn't really know anything about the writing and publishing process, like as you got started. So I think even you were like, holy crap, like there's
Right.
so many people and so many steps involved in this process. But it also goes to show that each of us have a different area. I should have nothing to do with back office anything, okay? Which is why we have Kiki. And I also shouldn't line edit any of my own work, which is why we have Nay. And I think you both remember when the line edits came back that I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that I made that same mistake over and over and over again, right?
There's something about a lobster, if I remember correctly.
Yes, a lot of lobster references, which have nothing to do with the book. I just really wanted to describe red as lobster. Like weird, like writing quirks that like I couldn't see myself anymore because I was so close to the manuscript. So this is why we need the different types of editors. We need the different types of publishing service professionals, because everybody's doing something different. And it's all important to the book coming out and being really just a great final product for the author on the other side. So one thing that I know we've all felt the impact of is the story, right? Like, and we don't have Nay here or Victoria here, unfortunately, to offer their perspective. But I know, Kiki, that you and I have felt the impact of Sam's story and working on it. What's been one of the things that's been the most like eye-opening or impactful in being a part of this project?
I think the biggest thing that has shocked me was the SNAP organization and learning about that, and learning that the necessity for an organization for survivors of this kind of abuse, and how I think some of the statistics are shocking. And I think one thing that was really important is opening the conversation. And it is Sam, it is truly amazing to me how strong you are through this whole process.
Thank you.
And just to take the bull by the horns, I could have said a different phrase, which actually popped in my head, but to take the bull by the horns and just say, you know, this is my, like you said, you got your voice. You know, this is, you are telling your story, and it is going to change lives. And this is why I do what I do, because it's important to get it out there. And I think the more we can talk about it and more remove that veil of shame, the more people can process and start to heal. But though, like you've said, it's a complete journey. And I think it has opened my eyes to a lot of different types of trauma and how they're dealt with in adult life when they, you know, from childhood. So it's just been very impactful in so many different ways.
Yeah. So I come to this work with kind of an interesting background, because in an earlier part of my life, I actually worked for Prevent Child Abuse Vermont. So I had a lot of education already about child sexual abuse. So unfortunately, those parts of the story were not as shocking to me. But where it impacted me a lot was as a mom. Oof. Like thinking about whether or not it would be possible for my child, who at the time that Sam and I started working on the manuscript was not far off in age from when Sam's abuse started, to think about whether or not he could actually internalize and withhold that kind of pain and suffering without my having any clue, or not be hiding it but me not say anything about it. And what it would mean to be a parent in a different generation or a different culture than the one I'm in now, where we take people of the cloth at face value. We put implicit trust, right in them without question, where, there have been times and places that like children are just not believed because adults rule, all things. And this is not to cast any kind of judgment or shame on Sam's parents, but just me as a parent now in 2024, right? Looking at my son, looking at his physical stature, looking at his emotional capability and capacity, and then to think about this kind of devastating trauma upon him was just like some days more than I could even, like I had to like really like compartmentalize, because it was just so like devastating and infuriating and like mind-boggling, that such a lack of adult responsibility and culpability in Sam's experience. And yet also knowing that that's not unusual for people Sam's age who experienced the abuse, when they were children, that's like a thing. And even for children who are experiencing it today, some of the same things are still happening. The institutionalized secrecy, the not believing, the not being educated enough to know the right questions or to trust the gut instincts that somebody's not safe, so despite some of the generational things, right, because there is a certain like time period and geography and cultural kind of piece of Sam's story, what we know from the statistics and what we know from the news stories of 2024 is that some of the same ways that abuse is covered up is the same as it's always been. And that's really unfortunate and unnecessary, right? And that is really why this book is important, right? Sam, do you want to talk about like what you're hoping the book is going to do for the people that it reaches?
Well, I think it's just another way of bringing up the subject again, because what happens is the subject gets brought up and it may be an article in a newspaper or something on the television, and everybody talks about it for a day or two, and then it just kind of gets swept under the rug again. So bringing the book out is a way for me, and as I say in the book, I hope it makes you angry enough that you do something about it. And that's continuing to talk about it and continuing to support those people that have been abused and are now survivors of that abuse. So it was really about bringing my story out for others to be able to hear about somebody that had went through this. For me, one of the things that I discovered is when I first went to look for support in regards to a group that I could join, everything that I was finding was based on females. And it was very hard to find a men's group. I did finally find a men's group in Las Vegas that actually turned into a writing group, which was really kind of the start and of me really wanting and becoming very interested in writing the book. So I think it's about keeping the conversation alive and really about reminding people that if you watch carefully, it very easily gets swept under the rug again. And we need as many people as possible to continue to talk about it.
Yep. Yeah. Beautifully said. So Laura actually has a question. She says, Sam, was there a part of your story that elicited stronger emotions than you expected once you saw it in written form?
Good question.
Yeah, I think the whole writing of the book was bringing up emotions for me, that I spent a lot of time walking. I would be on a Zoom call with Allie, and as soon as the Zoom call was over, I would take off and go and walk. And as she would send me things to review, it was many times taking me right back into the abuse again. So, yeah, I think the whole process of writing the book was a way to do the deeper healing that I needed to do. So each process through writing the book and prior to writing the book has been areas of healing that have each been different in the way that I've dealt with those.
Yeah. I think, if I recall correctly, Sam, I felt like there were, anytime we talked about your family, those were really difficult pieces for us to kind of like really get down in the right way, striking that balance between truth, but also grace, and love, but also some anger.
Mhm.
Like figuring out ways to balance, that you love your family, and largely in the grand scheme of things, they've been supportive, but that it wasn't always what you wanted it to be, that it
Right.
wasn't always what you expected it to be.
Right.
So I know those were, I know we rewrote those a lot. And then, it was also that the delicacy of how do we write about trauma without re-triggering you, without potentially triggering the reader, but also while being true to the experience,
Right.
and making sure that the non-survivors really felt and were placed in these moments so that they could get angry, right? So that they could feel the, the myriad of emotions that you might have been feeling as a victim. So talk about delicate balance. I mean, I think we were always weighing that. How much is too much?
Right.
How many details are too many details? How do we be truthful here? How do we do this, but maybe take a step back, And so one of the interesting things I think about this book is that in some of those like memories and flashbacks, the things that you recover in therapy, we wrote in third person, right? Kind of in that dissociative kind of state, because there was kind of a dissociation that was happening in those therapy sessions, where you're kind of out of body, like almost like looking down on yourself, right? And I think that making that decision to write those scenes in that third person gave us a little bit of distance to try to break it up between, from you having to relive it again, but also to keep it at a somewhat safe distance, for others, but while still packing a visceral punch.
Yeah, I think writing the third person really was a way for me to be able to read about those and not get so involved in the actual sessions, because as I read each of those sessions, I can remember each of those sessions just like they happened yesterday.
Yeah. One of the other interesting things too, right, for just giving people like that behind the scenes process. So Sam mentioned the box of stuff that arrived, right? So in this box of stuff were some of Sam's individual handwritten journal entries, other things that he had typed up along the process. Then we also had access to all of his therapist's notes from sessions with MDMA, and then of course there was all the court documentation. So, we had something that a lot of people don't have, which is like a vault of information to then piece together, the memories and the flashbacks and what happened in the therapy room, and be fairly accurate. Obviously things from childhood and some of the scenes we've had to take some creative liberty to kind of recreate based on memory, research, understanding of the time. But a lot of what's in the book is based on the overwhelming amount of stuff that you made available to pull from to create this narrative. And again, we didn't use every single thing that the therapist wrote down. We didn't use every single journal entry, but talk about like the interweaving of all of these different pieces that we had to work with. I mean, it's really like making a quilt in a lot of ways, sewing all these different pieces together to make something that makes sense and is beautiful, to someone else. It's maybe not cozy like a quilt, but it's, intricate like a quilt. I think for me, one of the most, and this kind of speaks to Laura's question, one of the most telling moments was, I don't know what version of the manuscript we were in, Sam, but I remember being on a Zoom call with you and you finally saying to me, I'm ready for the story to not be mine and to be somebody else's.
Right.
And that was huge, right? Like that was truly telling how much healing you had undergone through the process of writing this book, right? For you to finally be like, you know what, I don't want to live this every day anymore. I'm done. Like, I'm, yes, it happened. Yes, I accept it. Yes, it'll always be a part of me, but like also, like, I am ready to hand this thing over, say it's now everybody's, it's not just mine to carry. And I feel like around that same time, I felt like you were starting to like smile a lot more and laugh a lot more. And like your general disposition seemed to have like shifted. Like, like the dark cloud was no longer right on top of you, maybe kind of near you, but like not, directly on top of you. And that was really a truly magnificent kind of evolution to witness. So what I want to do next is, number one, I want to make sure, Kiki, that I get your website into the comments for folks. I did include that SNAP stands for the Survivors Network of Those Abused by Priests, and I put the URL into the comments. I want to acknowledge the literary manager at KLR, Literary Management. And so let me toss her website and her info into the comments for folks. And so what I want to do now is I actually want to share Sam's webpage so people know where to go and sign up for the email list, where you're going to get notifications about when the book is available for pre-order. And right now you can also sign up specifically to get a free chapter of the book. So, that dropped in the middle of the page. So it's a beautiful, clean, and simple web page. You can read about the book. You can read about Sam. Here's the full back cover description. And you can subscribe now to get the free chapter, a free chapter of Sam's book before it comes out. And then it'll put you into the email list where you can get the rest of the information about Though I Walk as it gets closer to publication date. We are aiming for a November 18th publication date, and that is in time with what is considered the official World Day for the Prevention of and Healing from Child Sexual Exploitation, Abuse, and Violence. Somewhere after the kind of like spotlight moment here, Boston Globe broke open the case of the child abuse happening in Massachusetts, right? Somewhere after that, I think this day was named as like an international day of prevention and awareness. And so this is the date that we're going with. It seems well timed and connected to the work. So in the coming weeks, pre-orders will start to open up. And of course, we encourage you to buy a copy when the pre-orders are available. All right, before we close, a few excerpts. Anything else, Sam or Kiki, that we should share with the audience that I didn't touch on?
I think another, Sam will also have some resources for people if need be. So those will be up on his website soon. I'm not sure they're there yet, but that will be another thing that will be available. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog drinking in the background.
I know, they're just so thirsty.
I thought it was a horse.
He's the size of a horse, a little horse. He's been doing so well this whole time.
So good, so good. And actually, what we should say too, Kiki, you mentioned resources going on the website, but one of the other things that we've included in the back of Sam's book is a list of resources. There's also a section back here called a call to arms, right? And this is things that we're encouraging the victims of child sexual abuse to do if they're reading the book. We have a list of things that adults or anyone can do if a victim discloses abuse, and things that you can do to react in an appropriate way. And I think that those are really important pieces to the back of the book. There's also a foreword in the front that kind of contextualizes this kind of, pandemic that we face. And then there's also a preface by Sam, which is really kind of, the impetus for him writing the book and why. So there's a lot of things that are hugging either side of the story itself, which I really encourage readers who are purchasing the book to take a look at. Don't just skip over them. I think that there's still a lot of good material in there. So we've chosen just a couple of excerpts, one from the beginning of the book and one from the back of the book. Though this is Sam's story, he's asked that I read it so that he can, if he needs to be emotional, he can be emotional and not have to read it himself. So I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs from the prologue, which gives you kind of a sense of how the book opens. And then I will read a few paragraphs from one of the later chapters, kind of in the last third or 1/4 of the book, and give you a little context around that when we get there. So this is from the prologue. In the dimming sun, the headstones seemed more menacing, more crooked and cracked. They tilted at angles like the way a broken bone might snap. They seemed bigger somehow, big enough to hide some foreign traveler, not from around a small Iowa town such as ours. I feared that wayward stranger tucked out of sight behind a tombstone, someone who is patient and cunning, waiting there quietly to make their first move. A terrifying someone with a fondness for children, particularly little boys. That was what scared me about the graveyard at night, that someone was in the shadows waiting to snatch me. Whomever they were, they would do it silently. They would do it in the shroud of darkness. They would know exactly what to do so no one would see me be taken and no one would hear me scream. They'd take me somewhere out of sight, somewhere dark and empty. The only way I might know what time it was, or if a new day had passed, would be by the church bell signaling the morning or evening mass. If I could hear the church bells, I would know I must be close to home, and it was still possible to be saved. I'd pray to be found. If I wasn't, a nighttime captor would eventually cast me aside when they were done with me, perhaps drag me back to the graveyard and bury me alive. A terrible way to go, I always thought, being buried alive, until I came to realize it was an even worse way to live. So that is a passage that opens the book. Now from chapter 21, entitled Coming Out Again, this is building up to the moment where Sam decides he's going to tell his family about the abuse before a newspaper article hits town revealing that he is suing the diocese of that town. October arrived and I headed back to Iowa for the wedding. While my siblings and I sat around a table at the reception, I invited them to go out to dinner the next evening. They agreed, never the wiser that I had a plan to come out about anything. We enjoyed the rest of the reception while I mentally prepared for what I would say, how I would say it, and when I would deliver the news. The following evening, after our plates had been cleared and the server was bringing around after dinner coffee, I waited for an opportune time to say something, recognizing there was no opportune time to tell your family you were abused as a child decades earlier and didn't know it, didn't remember it, and used drugs to figure it out. Sweat beaded on the back of my neck, though it was cool in the restaurant and my mouth went dry. For a moment, I thought I might not be able to say anything. Shirley, always in the know and always my rock, gave me a gentle nod. There was a lull in the conversation, and it was as good a time as any. I cleared my throat, trying to will the moisture back into my mouth so I could make a sound. My knees began to shake beneath the table, and my heart beat wildly like a trapped bird. The sweat left my hairline and made its descent down my forehead. There's something I need to tell you all. My sisters watched, leaning forward on the tables with their elbows. My brothers evaded eye contact, focusing on their hands resting in their laps across their bellies. And that's where I will leave you all, so that you want to know how that all goes down. Folks, we really hope that you're going to choose to buy a copy of Sam's book once it becomes available for pre-order. We hope that you're going to be following each of us in the online spaces and places to know when that happens. We encourage you to head over to Sam's website, which I will put in the chat right now, so that you can sign up to be a part of the email list and grab that free chapter while you're waiting for the whole thing to be available for order. Any last words, Sam or Kiki?
I don't think so.
I think I'm good. I like you said, I really do hope that people will buy this book and read this story and share the story and really keep the conversation going. I think it's really important. I think that was one of the things that did attract me to this conversation. I remember when you guys called and asked if the legal issues would be a problem for me. And I thought, hell no, let's get this story out there. Right. So I hope that you will share it with who needs to be shared and to just be more aware, right, of some signs that maybe we weren't aware of before, and just keep our eyes open.
Yeah, perfectly said. Sam, thank you so much for your courage and bravery and sharing your story with us and with the world. And we're wishing you all the success with your book coming out.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, stay tuned for more updates. And again, this has been the pre-publication proof reveal of Though I Walk, a memoir of trauma, healing, and truth by Sam Heinrichs, and it'll be out in November. We will catch you all next time. Bye now.
Bye.